There's something happening at night in marinas across the country that nobody's supposed to talk about. Something that marina operators do under cover of darkness. Something that solves a problem they're desperate to solve, but can't solve legally. Something that, if you knew it was happening, would fundamentally change how you think about boat abandonment, marina liability, and the desperate measures people take when systems break down. I'm going to tell you about boats that disappear. Not stolen, not sold, not moved to another location. Disappeared. Boats that are in a slip one week and gone the next, with no record of removal, no documentation, no official acknowledgement that anything happened. And I'm going to tell you why this is happening, who's doing it, how they're getting away with it, and what it reveals about just how broken the boat market has become. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented reality that exists in the gray area between legal process and practical necessity, where marina operators are making choices that could destroy them if exposed, but seem like the only choices available given the circumstances they're facing. What I'm about to reveal is going to shock you, not because it's particularly violent or dramatic, but because it represents such a fundamental breakdown of normal systems that illegal actions start looking rational. Because it shows how the abandoned boat crisis has pushed marina operators into territory where law and ethics become secondary to survival. And because once you understand why this is happening, you'll realize that the boat market collapse isn't just affecting owners and brokers and buyers. It's creating a shadow economy of illegal disposal, where boats that should be processed through courts and legal channels are instead being quietly disappeared in ways that leave no trail and no accountability. By the end of this video, you're going to know things that marina operators don't want known. You're going to understand the economics and the desperation that drive these actions. You're going to see how easy it is to make a boat disappear when you control the marina. And you're going to have to decide what you think about all of this, because there are no clear good guys and bad guys here. There are just people trapped in an impossible situation making choices that seemed unthinkable until they became necessary. Stay with me, because this story goes places you won't expect, and by the time I'm done, you're going to see the abandoned boat crisis in a completely different light. Let me start by setting the context, because you need to understand the problem marina operators are facing before you can understand why some of them are resorting to illegal solutions. Marinas are being overwhelmed by abandoned boats, not just a few scattered derelict vessels, but dozens in some locations. Boats whose owners have vanished, stopped paying slip fees, stopped responding to contact attempts. These abandoned boats occupy valuable slips that could be generating revenue. They're deteriorating and creating environmental hazards. They're dragging down the marina's reputation and aesthetic. They're liability nightmares that could sink in place or break loose and cause damage. Marina operators want them gone. But removing abandoned boats legally is a nightmare. The process varies by state, but generally requires months or years of legal action. The marina has to document extensive attempts to contact the owner. They have to send certified notices that often get returned as undeliverable. They have to file liens and get court orders. They might have to wait through lengthy notification periods. And throughout all of this, the boat is sitting there, occupying space, deteriorating, costing the marina money not just in lost slip fees, but in legal costs and administrative time. Even when the marina finally gets legal authority to remove the boat, they discover there's no market for it. Nobody wants to buy an abandoned boat that's been sitting deteriorating for a year. The marina ends up having to pay for disposal, which can cost thousands of dollars. So let's do the math on what an abandoned boat costs a marina. Lost slip fees, maybe $800 to $2,000 a month depending on size and location. Legal costs to pursue abandonment proceedings, probably $5,000 to $10,000. Disposal costs once they finally get authority to remove it, another $3,000 to $8,000. And time and administrative burden that has opportunity cost. All told, a single abandoned boat might cost a marina $30,000 to $60,000 by the time it's legally removed. And if you have 10 abandoned boats, or 15 or 20, the costs become existential. A small marina can't absorb $200,000 in losses from abandoned boats. It'll put them out of business. So marina operators are facing this reality. Follow the legal process and potentially go bankrupt or find another way. And some of them are finding another way. They're making boats disappear. Now, before I tell you how they're doing this, let me be absolutely clear. What I'm describing is illegal. It's destruction of property. It's potentially environmental crimes. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm telling you it's happening because the situation has become so desperate that people are choosing to break the law rather than face financial ruin following the law. This is what happens when systems break down. When legal processes are so slow and expensive that they don't work, people find illegal alternatives. So how do you make a boat disappear? It's easier than you'd think if you control the marina. The first method, and probably the most common, is strategic sinking. The marina operator waits for the right conditions, usually bad weather or high traffic time when there are lots of boats moving around. They access the abandoned boat, which is easy because it's in their marina and owners aren't monitoring it. They open seacocks or through hulls, basically valves that normally allow water to flow through systems, but can also let water flood into the hull. They might also remove drain plugs or compromise hoses. Water starts flooding into the boat. Within hours, the boat sinks at the dock. Now the marina has a sunken boat problem instead of an abandoned boat problem. But here's the key difference. A sunken boat is an immediate environmental and safety hazard. The authorities get involved immediately, not in months after lengthy legal process. The Coast Guard, environmental agencies, Harbour Master, they all want the sunken boat removed right now. And guess what? The marina operator has insurance for sunken boat removal. Or the authorities have emergency removal funds, or there are contractors who specialize in this and work with authorities. The boat gets removed quickly, usually within days or weeks. The costs are borne by insurance or public funds, not by the marina. The slip is freed up, and there's no evidence that the sinking wasn't natural. Old boats sink at docks all the time. Through hulls fail, hoses burst, bilge pumps stop working. Proving the marina deliberately sank the boat would be nearly impossible. The second method is offshore disposal. This one is riskier, but happens in marinas near open water. The marina operator, usually late at night, moves the abandoned boat out of the marina. Maybe they have a workboat that tows it. Maybe they put minimal crew on it and motor it out. They take it several miles offshore to deep water. They open it up, let it flood, and sink it. The boat disappears into the ocean. There's no evidence it ever happened. The marina simply says the boat broke loose during weather and was lost, or they say the owner came and moved it, and they assumed it was authorized. Without witnesses or documentation, there's no way to prove the marina disposed of the boat illegally. And even if there were suspicions, who's going to investigate? The owner's long gone and isn't filing complaints. Local authorities don't have resources to investigate every boat that goes missing from a marina. The boat just disappears into the depths and everyone moves on. The third method is parting out and disposal. This one takes more time, but is probably safer legally. The marina operator systematically strips the abandoned boat. Electronics, hardware, sails, rigging, anything valuable gets removed and sold. The stripped hull is then cut up or broken down to the point where it's no longer recognizable as a boat. The pieces get disposed of as scrap metal or taken to landfills or dumps. This takes weeks or months and requires more effort, but it's much harder to prove as illegal disposal. The marina can claim they were maintaining the boat or securing loose equipment or preventing environmental hazards. By the time anyone might question it, the boat no longer exists in any identifiable form. Now you might be thinking, surely someone would notice boats disappearing. Surely other boat owners or marina staff or someone would report this. But here's the thing, people aren't paying attention. Most marina tenants don't closely track which boats are where unless it directly affects them. They notice when a boat near them has been abandoned for months, but they don't notice when it's suddenly gone. They assume something official happened, that the owner came and got it, or it got moved or sold. Marina staff, if they're aware of what's happening, they're not going to report it because their jobs depend on the marina staying in business. And abandoned boat owners, the ones who would have standing to complain, they've already vanished. They're not monitoring their boats. Many don't even know their boats have been disappeared. And even if they found out, what are they going to do? They abandoned the boat. They owe the marina thousands in back fees. They have no documentation of the boat's condition. They'd have to prove the marina deliberately destroyed their property, which is nearly impossible, and they'd be opening themselves up to countersuits for the fees they owe. So they stay quiet, and the disappeared boats generate no complaints, no investigations, nothing. It's the perfect crime in the sense that there are no witnesses who will testify and no victims who will prosecute. Let me tell you about specific cases, because this isn't theoretical. This is real, and I've talked to people who've done it or witnessed it happening. I'm going to be vague about locations and identifying details because I don't want to expose individuals to legal liability. But these are real stories. Case 1 involves a marina in the southeast. They had 12 abandoned boats, ranging from 30 to 50 feet. Legal process to remove them would have taken 18 months minimum and cost over $100,000 collectively. Over a 6-month period, 6 of those boats sank at the dock during various storms and weather events. Coast Guard came, environmental contractors removed them, insurance covered most costs. The marina operator told me flat out that none of those sinkings were accidental. They carefully chose which boats to sink, based on which would cause least environmental damage, which were deteriorated enough that sinking looked natural, and which were positioned where sinking wouldn't affect other boats. They did it, they got away with it, and they'd do it again because the alternative was bankruptcy. Case 2 involves a marina on the west coast. They had 8 abandoned boats. Over 2 years, all 8 disappeared. Some sank, some were reported as stolen. Some just vanished with vague explanations about owners retrieving them. I talked to a former employee who said it was systematic. The marina operator had a contractor who would come late at night and boats would be gone by morning. The employee didn't know exactly what the contractor did with them, didn't want to know, but the boats were gone and the marina paid the contractor cash. No records, no documentation. The employee left that job because they couldn't stomach being part of it, but they also didn't report it because they understood why it was happening and felt conflicted about the ethics. Case 3 involves a marina in the Caribbean. Abandoned boats are a huge problem there because it's a destination where cruisers run out of money and abandon boats. This marina had 23 abandoned boats at one point. Legally removing them would have bankrupted the marina multiple times over. The marina operator organized what he called cleanups. During slow periods, usually hurricane season when few people were around, they'd take multiple abandoned boats out to sea and scuttle them in deep water. He told me they did this 4 times over 3 years, removing maybe 15 boats total. He was matter-of-fact about it. It was either that or close the marina. Local authorities knew what was happening and looked the other way because they didn't want to deal with the abandoned boat problem either. Everyone benefited from the boats disappearing except maybe the ocean ecosystem where they were dumped. Now, let's talk about the ethics of this because it's complicated. On one hand, this is clearly illegal. It's destruction of property, environmental violation, potentially fraud. The people doing this are breaking laws, and if caught, they'd face criminal charges and civil liability. It's wrong in the sense that law breaking is wrong. But on the other hand, the marina operators doing this are desperate. They followed legal processes, or tried to, and discovered those processes don't work. They're facing financial ruin because of a problem they didn't create. The abandoned boats aren't their fault. They're victims of the boat market collapse just like the owners who abandoned the boats. and the legal system has completely failed to provide a workable solution. So they're choosing illegal action over bankruptcy. Is that morally wrong? I don't have a clear answer. It's illegal. But calling it immoral requires you to say that marina operators should follow processes that destroy their businesses rather than bend rules to survive. And I'm not sure I can make that judgment. What about the environmental impact? Sinking boats in harbors or offshore that's creating pollution, hazards to navigation, harm to marine ecosystems. That's undeniably bad. But here's the counter-argument. Those abandoned boats, if left in place, they're going to sink eventually anyway. Most of them are deteriorating to the point where sinking is inevitable. At least when marina operators deliberately sink them, they can choose timing and method that minimize damage. They can remove fuel and oil first. They can sink them in locations where environmental impact is minimized versus letting them sink randomly, breaking apart, spreading debris and pollutants. Both outcomes are bad environmentally, but the controlled disposal might actually be less bad. And let's talk about the systemic failure that's driving all of this. The real villain here isn't marina operators making desperate choices. It's the legal system that makes boat abandonment so easy and removal so difficult. It's the boat market that created conditions where mass abandonment became inevitable. It's the lack of industry responsibility for the end-of-life costs of boats. Nobody's taking responsibility for the systemic problem, so individual actors are improvising solutions, legal or not, because they have to solve the problems they're facing right now, not wait for systemic reform that might never come. Here's what should happen but won't. There should be streamlined legal processes for removing abandoned boats. Something faster than months or years, something that doesn't cost tens of thousands in legal fees. There should be public funds to cover removal and disposal costs, maybe funded by registration fees or industry taxes. There should be required bonds or insurance for boat owners to ensure abandonment costs are covered. There should be industry responsibility, where manufacturers contribute to end-of-life disposal programs. These solutions exist in other contexts. Tire disposal, e-waste, automotive recycling, they all have systems that work reasonably well, but boats don't. And creating those systems requires political will and industry buy-in that doesn't exist. So instead, we have marina operators secretly scuttling boats and hoping they don't get caught. That's not a system. That's a symptom of system failure, and it's going to continue until someone builds a better system. Now, if you're a boat owner, what does this mean for you? It means that if you're thinking about abandoning your boat, understand that it's not just going to sit there indefinitely. It's likely going to be disappeared, legally or otherwise. The marina's going to do whatever it takes to get rid of it. And while you might not face direct consequences if you've already walked away, you should understand that your abandoned boat might end up at the bottom of a harbor or scattered across the ocean floor. If you're an owner with a boat in a marina, this should motivate you to stay current on fees and maintain communication with the marina, because the line between a temporarily unused boat and an abandoned boat that gets disappeared might be thinner than you think. Marinas are understandably paranoid about abandonment right now. If you stop communicating, stop paying, stop showing up, they're going to assume abandonment, and they might take action faster than you expect. And if you're considering buying a boat, this is yet another data point suggesting the market is fundamentally broken. When the end-of-life disposal of boats has become so problematic that illegal scuttling is the practical solution, that tells you something about the viability of boat ownership as currently structured. The marina operators who are secretly disappearing boats, they're not villains. They're people trapped between legal processes that don't work and financial pressures that are existential. They're making choices that seem necessary even though those choices are illegal and ethically ambiguous. And they're getting away with it because the system is so broken that nobody with the power to stop them has incentive to do so. The boats are disappearing into harbors and oceans and landfills. The marinas are surviving, The authorities are pretending not to notice, and everyone's hoping that somehow the abandoned boat crisis will resolve itself before the whole shadow economy of illegal disposal becomes so large that it can't be ignored. That's where we are. That's the reality. Boats are being secretly scuttled, not because people are malicious, but because systems have failed and desperate people are doing desperate things. Now you know.